When I opened that small crumpled piece of paper, I never imagined 5 rushed words from my daughter would change everything. Pretend you're sick and leave. For a moment I just stared, unsure whether to laugh or be alarmed. My 14-year-old daughter, Sophie, stood before me, pale, her eyes wide with fear that didn't belong to a child. My name is Linda Walker. I am 39 years old, a literature professor, and for the past 2 years, I thought I had finally found peace. After my divorce, I met Michael Reed, a successful entrepreneur who seemed to rebuild the world around me. He was charming, generous, and endlessly attentive. We married quickly, and soon we moved into a beautiful home just outside of Seattle. Everyone thought I had it all: a loving husband, financial stability, and my daughter finally smiling again after years of uncertainty. Michael treated Sophie with patience at first. He brought her gifts, asked about her grades, and pretended to care about her favorite books. But I noticed that Sophie often watched him quietly, her little brow furrowing, as if she saw something I didn't. That Saturday morning felt ordinary. The house smelled like fresh coffee and orange zest. Michael had invited several of his business partners for a brunch, one he had been preparing for all week. He wanted to impress them, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I had spent the morning in the kitchen arranging fruit platters and setting the table. When Sophie walked in, her face was drained of color. "Mom," she whispered, "I need to show you something in my room." Her voice trembled slightly. Before I could respond, Michael entered. He was in his usual crisp shirt and expensive tie, smelling of cologne and confidence. "What are you two whispering about?" he asked with that polished smile that never reached his eyes. "Nothing important," I answered automatically. "Sophie just needs help with something for school." He checked his watch. "Make it quick. The guests will be here in 30 minutes, and I need you by my side when they arrive." I nodded, forcing a smile, and followed Sophie down the hallway. The moment we stepped into her room, she shut the door quickly and turned the lock. My heart skipped. "What's going on, sweetheart? You're scaring me." Sophie didn't speak. She picked up a small folded note from her desk and pressed it into my palm. Her hands were shaking. I opened it, confused, and read the words that made my pulse freeze. "Pretend you're sick and leave." "Sophie, what kind of joke is this?" I asked, trying to sound calm but feeling a strange weight in my chest. Her eyes filled with tears. "It's not a joke. Please, Mom, you have to get out of the house. Right now. Tell him you don't feel well, that you need medicine, just go." The fear in her voice was raw, trembling, too real to ignore. For the first time in years, I saw my daughter not as a child, but as someone standing between me and danger. I didn't understand why yet, but something deep inside told me to trust her, and that single choice would end up saving my life. I stood frozen in Sophie's room, holding that note as if it might dissolve between my fingers. My mind raced to find logic, to explain why my daughter, my quiet, sensible Sophie, would tell me something so strange. "Sophie," I whispered, "you're shaking. Tell me what's happening." She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, footsteps echoed in the hallway. The doorknob turned slightly. My heart jumped. The door creaked open and Michael appeared, his jaw tight, his voice sharp but polite. "What's taking so long? The guests are already pulling into the driveway." "I just need a minute," I said quickly. "Sophie isn't feeling great either. We'll be right down." Michael's eyes lingered on us for a second longer than necessary, his smile perfectly rehearsed. Then he turned and walked away, leaving the faint scent of cologne hanging in the air. When the door clicked shut, Sophie looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please, Mom. I can't explain right now, but you have to leave. He'll notice soon." Her words collided with reason fighting to make sense. Michael had never raised his voice to me, never shown anger. He was calm, confident, the kind of man who planned everything down to the smallest detail. Surely this was some misunderstanding. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "maybe you heard something wrong. Maybe he was talking about work." Sophie shook her head violently. "No, Mom, it's not that. I'll tell you once we're safe, I promise. But you need to trust me right now." I looked at her, the trembling lip, the tears threatening to fall, and something inside me cracked. The maternal instinct that had guided me through every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every night of sickness, it whispered now, "Listen to her." Still, doubt clawed at me. My mind painted pictures of embarrassment, of misunderstanding, of apologizing to Michael later for overreacting. But then Sophie grabbed my wrist and whispered, "If you stay, he's going to hurt you." The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The ticking clock sounded louder than my own breathing. "I don't know what's going on," I said finally. but I'll trust you." I didn't realize it then, but those words spoken out of fear and motherly instinct would draw the line between life and death. I took a deep breath, straightened my blouse, and stepped out of the room, ready to play a part in a story I didn't yet understand. Downstairs, the living room was already buzzing with polite laughter. The smell of freshly brewed tea drifted from the kitchen, blending with the hum of conversation. Michael stood near the doorway, greeting two men in tailored suits. He caught sight of me immediately. "Feeling better, darling?" he asked, his tone smooth but watchful. "Not really," I said, pressing a hand to my temple. "I think it's another migraine. I'm going to the pharmacy for something stronger. Sophie's coming with me." Michael's jaw tightened for half a second before his perfect smile returned. "All right, but come back soon. They'll ask for you." "Of course," I said softly. My voice sounded steady, but my heart was hammering so hard I thought he could hear it. Sophie and I walked calmly through the front door. The moment we stepped outside, she gripped my hand so tightly it hurt. "Drive, Mom," she said under her breath. "Just drive." We climbed into the car, and as soon as the gate closed behind us, I saw her shoulders tremble. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. "I heard him last night," she whispered. "He was in his office talking on the phone. He said you'd drink the tea today, like you always do, and no one would suspect a thing. He said it would look like a heart attack." I hit the brakes too hard, the tires screeching. "Sophie, that's not." She cut me off, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, please." I heard every word. He even laughed about it. The world tilted. The tea, the sudden insistence that I drink it during every brunch, the insurance paperwork Michael made me sign months ago for protection. It all flashed before me like shattered glass rearranging into a picture I didn't want to see. "Sophie," I whispered, my throat dry, "you're sure?" She nodded. "He said after you were gone, everything would be his. The money, the house, and he mentioned me too. He said he'd handle me later." For a moment I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, the car shrinking around us. I started the engine again. "We're not going back there," I said, my voice trembling but firm. But Sophie looked straight at me. "We can't just run, Mom. He'll find us. We need proof." And right then I realized my daughter wasn't just saving me. She was already planning our survival. The thought of going back felt like stepping into a burning house. My body screamed no, but Sophie's logic was terrifyingly clear. Without proof, Michael could twist the story, paint me as unstable, and still get everything he wanted. "We need evidence," she said quietly. "The poison, the papers, something he can't deny." I hesitated at the intersection, gripping the wheel so hard my fingers ached. "If he finds us..." "He already will," she interrupted, "but this time we'll be ready." So, against every instinct of self-preservation, I turned the car around. When we drove back through the gate, my pulse thundered in my ears. The house looked too calm, the laughter inside almost mocking. I parked, drew a deep breath and said, "Remember the plan. You're not feeling well either. Go straight to your room, keep your phone on." Sophie nodded, clutching her small purse close like a lifeline. As soon as we stepped in, Michael turned from the guests, his polished smile intact. "Ah, there you are," he said smoothly, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Feeling better?" "A little," I answered, forcing a weak smile. "The medicine's starting to help." "Good. Come, I want you to meet someone." Every inch of my body wanted to flinch away from his touch. His hand felt heavier than it ever had before. I smiled mechanically, chatting politely as Sophie excused herself upstairs. The room blurred with laughter, glasses clinking, shallow compliments. I could hardly hear them. I checked my phone every minute. No message yet. 20 minutes crawled by before my screen lit up with a single word. "No. My stomach dropped. I excused myself and hurried up the stairs, my pulse racing. Sophie was waiting near her door, her face pale, whispering, "He's coming up." "What did you find?" I asked quickly. She pulled out her phone, showing a photo of a small amber bottle with no label. It was hidden in his desk. "And there's more." Before she could finish, we heard his voice downstairs, moving closer, his footsteps deliberate. Panic surged. I grabbed Sophie's hand. "Window," I whispered. "Now." We ran to the back window just as the doorknob turned. "Linda? Sophie?" Michael's voice was calm, too calm. We had seconds before the mask of civility would fall away completely. The door handle began to turn. My heart slammed against my ribs. I yanked the window open and tied the bedsheet to the heavy desk leg as quickly as I could. Sophie, go first, I whispered. Slide down as far as you can, then let go. Her eyes widened in panic. It's too high. It's our only chance, I urged. Go. The lock clicked. Michael was outside, keys jingling. His shadow passed under the door. Sophie swung one leg out and grabbed the makeshift rope. She slid halfway down, her sneakers scraping against the wall. Then jumped. I held my breath until I saw her land on the grass and roll safely to her knees. Mom, she called softly, waving for me to hurry. The door burst open behind me. Linda. Michael's voice ripped through the room, filled with fury. I didn't think. I gripped the sheet and slid down, burning my palms as the fabric tore slightly. When my feet hit the ground, a sharp pain shot through my ankle, but adrenaline drowned it out. Run, I shouted. We darted across the backyard, weaving between the trimmed hedges, heading for the side gate. Behind us came the echo of Michael's voice now shouting for help. She's having another episode, she's taking Sophie. I understood then. He was already rewriting the story, making himself the victim. If the neighbors heard, they'd believe him, the charming husband, the unstable wife. We sprinted toward the outer fence and climbed over. My ankle screamed, but fear gave me strength. Once on the other side, Sophie grabbed my hand, gasping for breath. Where now? She asked. Into the woods, I said, pointing to the line of tall pines behind the houses. Branches slapped against our faces as we pushed through. My pulse pounded louder than the wind. After several frantic minutes, we reached a narrow road behind the neighborhood. A car engine roared somewhere nearby too close. Sophie looked terrified. He's looking for us. I nodded. We keep moving. We found a busy street and flagged down a taxi. The driver glanced at our disheveled clothes, but I only said, downtown. Fast. As we pulled away, I saw Michael's silhouette appear at the edge of the street, scanning the road. He was already hunting us. But this time I had something he didn't: Sophie's courage and a truth ready to explode. The taxi wove through the Seattle traffic, every turn feeling like a race against time. Sophie sat beside me, clutching her phone like a weapon, her face pale but determined. Mom, what if he calls the police first? She asked, her voice trembling. He probably already has, I said quietly. That's why we need someone who'll believe us before he twists everything. That's when I thought of Karen Blake, my old friend from college. She was now a criminal attorney, sharp, fearless, and the only person I trusted to help us. I grabbed my phone and called her. To my relief, she picked up on the second ring. Karen, it's Linda. I need your help. It's serious. Michael tried to kill me. There was a brief pause, then her voice came through steady and professional. Where are you? At the Riverfront Mall, second floor, near the coffee shop. I'm on my way. Don't talk to anyone, especially not the police, until I get there. When we arrived, I led Sophie into the cafe. The smell of espresso should have been comforting, but my nerves were shot. We sat in a corner booth. I could see my reflection in the window, hair messy, eyes red, a woman caught between fear and disbelief. Sophie's phone buzzed. A message from Michael. Where are you? Please, come home. You're confused. I showed her my own phone, 10 missed calls and a voicemail from him, sounding perfectly calm. Linda, sweetheart, please call me back. You're not well. I just want to help you. My stomach twisted. He was already building his defense. 15 minutes later, Karen arrived, sharp navy blazer, hair pulled back, calm under pressure. She looked at me once, then at Sophie, then said, "Tell me everything." We told her everything: Sophie's note, the overheard phone call, the hidden bottle. Karen listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When we finished, she said, "All right, we need to play this carefully. He'll report you as unstable. He'll say you took Sophie against his wishes. Don't panic when officers approach you. Let me handle it." As if on cue, 2 police officers entered the cafe, scanning the crowd. Sophie's grip on my arm tightened. "Stay calm," Karen whispered. The taller officer approached. "Ma'am, are you Linda Walker?" I nodded slowly. "Your husband reported you missing. He's concerned for your mental health." Karen stood immediately, flashing her badge. "I'm attorney Karen Blake, representing Mrs. Walker and her daughter, and I suggest before you label anyone unstable, you take a look at the evidence we're about to show you." Sophie opened her phone, showing the photo of the bottle and the note Michael had written. For the first time that day, I saw doubt flicker across the officers' faces. The officers exchanged a quick glance before the older one cleared his throat. We'll need both of you to come to the station for questioning, he said carefully. Your husband is on his way there now? Karen nodded coolly. Good, we'll meet him there. But my clients are not suspects, they're witnesses and victims of an attempted homicide. The younger officer hesitated. That's a serious accusation, ma'am. Karen's tone hardened. So is poisoning someone. At the precinct, the air was cold and sterile. Michael arrived minutes later, dressed impeccably as always. His performance began the moment he stepped into the room. Linda, he said with a shaky smile, thank God you're safe. You scared me half to death. I stared at him, unable to speak. His eyes were full of artificial concern, the same eyes that used to make me feel safe. Officer, he continued smoothly, my wife has been struggling. Anxiety, paranoia. I've tried to get her help, but she refuses her medication. That's a lie, I said sharply, my voice trembling with anger. I've never been treated for anything like that. Michael sighed dramatically. She forgets things, she gets confused. I've kept records, doctor's notes, prescriptions. Karen cut him off. Then provide them. Now, because what we have are photographs of a hidden poison bottle and a written plan to stage her death as a heart attack. Would you like to explain those? For a second, the charming mask cracked. Michael blinked, his jaw tightening, but he recovered quickly. You've been manipulated, he said, turning to me. By your daughter, by this lawyer. You're not thinking clearly. Before I could answer, the door opened. A forensic technician entered, holding a folder. He handed it to the lead officer, who skimmed the contents silently, then looked up. Mr. Reed, he said slowly, the preliminary tests from your house are back. The liquid in that bottle contains traces of arsenic, and the blood found in the bedroom. It's yours, which means you planted it. Michael froze. For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then his face twisted, rage spilling through every carefully rehearsed expression. You stupid woman, he shouted, lunging forward, his voice echoing off the walls. You ruined everything. 2 officers restrained him immediately, pressing him against the table. Karen stood beside me, calm as steel. I think that's enough, gentlemen. You can add attempted murder, fraud, and evidence tampering to his list. As they dragged him out, Michael glared back at me, eyes burning with hatred. And for the first time I saw him for who he truly was, not my husband, not a charming businessman, but a predator unmasked at last. The days that followed blurred together police interviews, paperwork, news coverage, and the endless shock of realizing how close I had come to dying. Michael was denied bail and charged with attempted murder, insurance fraud, and falsifying medical records. The evidence was overwhelming. Sophie and I stayed with Karen for a while. Her guest room became our safe haven, filled with soft blankets, warm meals, and the steady hum of her old ceiling fan. I couldn't sleep much at first. Every creak of the floorboards made me flinch. Sophie had nightmares too, waking up in tears. But we were safe. That was all that mattered. When the trial began months later, I walked into the courtroom with my daughter beside me. Michael sat at the defense table, still trying to look respectable, but the arrogance was gone. He avoided my eyes when the prosecution read his emails, financial statements, and the recordings pulled from his office security system. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. 45 years in prison. No possibility of parole for 20. When the verdict was read, I didn't feel triumph. Just relief, a heavy, exhausted kind of peace that settles when the storm finally passes. A year later, Sophie and I moved to a smaller house near the ocean. It wasn't grand or perfect, but it was ours. I found work teaching again, and Sophie started volunteering at an animal shelter. Slowly, laughter returned to our days. Sometimes, when the wind rattles the windows, I still see flashes of that morning, the note, the panic, the running. But then I remember what came after. The quiet breakfast, the safety, the second chance. I keep that note in a wooden box by my bed. The ink has faded a little, but the words still burn. Pretend you're sick and leave. 5 words that saved my life, written by the bravest 14-year-old I've ever known. It took time for me to understand that survival isn't just about escaping danger, it's about rebuilding who you are after it ends. For months I carried guilt. I kept asking myself how I hadn't seen the signs, how I could have slept beside someone planning my death. But healing began the moment I stopped blaming myself and started listening to the quiet courage that saved me, my daughter's voice. Sophie taught me that instincts are never wrong, only ignored. When something feels off, it usually is. And when fear tells you to stay silent, it's often the moment you most need to speak. If you're watching this and something inside you feels familiar, if you've ever doubted your worth, second-guessed your fear, or told yourself maybe it's nothing, please trust yourself. Reach out, leave if you have to. The people who love you will help you find safety, and the life waiting beyond fear is worth every step. We don't always get to choose our storms, but we can decide how to rise after them. 5 words saved my life. Maybe today, someone watching this video needs to hear just one leave. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who might need strength, and comment where you're watching from. This is The Art of Revenge, where every scar tells a story of survival, courage, and rebirth. Stay safe, stay brave, and never ignore that small voice inside that says, something isn't right.